At this stage, and by the way, I have to add, Lynne she's registered with as a PRN with the Engineering Council of South Africa. She is involved in the Divisional Committee of the South African Institution of Civil Engineers and is the current president of CESA. So allow me, ladies and gentlemen, to welcome Lynne to the podium.
I will still be around as, I think the official title is the immediate past president. But thank you very much for this opportunity. So since the start of my term as CESA President, we were faced with ever-growing challenges which had a significant impact on our profession as consulting engineers and our role in society. These included downgrading of the country's investment status, concerns about financing and the investment in and the maintenance of infrastructure, ever-increasing civil protests about service delivery matters, escalating to concerns about state capture, and the implications that all of this will have on the economic outlook of South Africa. And through all of this, consulting engineering firms had to remain resilient and sustain themselves in a highly competitive market. During 2016, we also had the negotiations around the Construction Sector Charter Council scorecard. It was concluded then and it was submitted to the Department of Trade and Industry. It was also submitted for public comment or distributed for public comment in December 2016, and the revised version was subsequently submitted to Cabinet for approval. And we are happy to report that we received word last week that this revised scorecard has indeed been accepted by Cabinet. Subsequently, the Preferential Procurement Policy Framework Act was promulgated, and it placed a renewed emphasis on transformation imperatives within the construction sector. And we as consulting engineers in South Africa, we are part of this country's transformation agenda. The knowledge-based services we provide, the design of projects and the management and of the construction of these projects directly contributes towards social and economic upliftment, job creation, nation building, infrastructure growth, economic development across South Africa and across the SADC regions towards the greater African continent where our members are active. The presidential message for 2017 was themed, Let's Talk Transformation. And through this, CESA aims to then participate in broader transformation within the construction sector and ultimately within our society. Since February this year, I have traveled across South Africa to most of our regions to meet with our members and their clients, to strengthen these partnerships, and to discuss how we can work together to achieve constructive and sustainable transformation in our industry. The critical role that the engineering industry, in particular the consulting engineering profession, has in the development and functioning of South Africa's economy and the transformation of our society cannot be underestimated. And we have identified the professional registration of young engineering staff, providing support to small and medium-sized businesses, mentoring, acknowledgement of the glass ceilings and other social barriers to the progression of young black engineers and women engineers in our industry. We have identified these as potential strategies to adopt towards achieving our transformation goals. Subsequently, the CESA CEO was charged with commencing a process to establish the CESA Tutuka bursary scheme. Some companies have expressed interest, and we are in the process of establishing the agreements with the respective companies to then contribute and participate in this program. And through this intervention, we can identify and support learners with the aptitude for maths and science at secondary school level, provide support, guide, mentor these learners towards studying further in the field of engineering, and provide financial assistance towards tertiary studies, provide the necessary social support to students from disadvantaged schools and backgrounds to assist them with work placement after graduation, mentor graduate engineering staff in the workplace to ensure that the necessary skills and competencies are developed towards professional registration. This year, CESA has also assisted National Treasury with the training of public sector officials in the implementation of the Standard for Infrastructure Procurement and Delivery Management. The initiative of National Treasury allows for the sound development and implementation of engineering projects and will go a long way towards improving infrastructure provision by the public sector. However, we are concerned over the public sector's capacity to implement the standard. Partnerships with the International Federation of Consulting Engineers, or FIDIC, as well as the regional bloc of the South African development communities and the rest of Africa, it's of utmost importance to further ensure quality and uniformity in engineering consulting practice and to create a conducive business environment for our members working within Africa. And CESA hosted the conference then for GAMA, the group of member associations in Cape Town this year, which was really well attended. The common refrain was that partnerships are vital to achieving progress and believe that together we can do great things and take the African continent to new heights and grow vibrant and dynamic African cities. But let us reflect on a few developments as well in the legislative environment in the last few months, and that will also form the basis then for the deliberations today. Firstly, let us reflect on the BBBE scorecard. One of the concerning aspects highlighted by the negotiation process was the fault line in our industry: the established sector versus the emerging sector. And the latter sector representing the interest of black business, with the construction sector representing the interest of white business within our charter sector. And CESA, notwithstanding the fact that it is a long-standing organization with members across both sectors, was assigned to the established sector. I must admit this position was extremely challenging to manage, as the CESA membership comprised established and emerging consulting engineering firms. The Preferential Procurement Policy Framework Act came into effect in April this year. This act contained pre-qualification criteria then for preferential procurement, and it states that if an organ of state decides to apply pre-qualifying criteria to advance certain designated groups, that organ of state must advertise the tender with a specific tendering condition that only one or more of the following tenderers may respond. A tenderer having a stipulated minimum BBBE status, also being an EME or a QSE, and then a tenderer has to subcontract a minimum of 30% to listed designated groups. This approach has in fact already been adopted by CESA in 2014 in its position paper on the empowerment and development of emerging and small consulting engineering firms in infrastructure delivery. The Act also stated that an organ of state must state in the tender documents if the tender will be evaluated on functionality, implying that functionality might be optional. In addition, a very significant change is that the 80-20 preference point system will apply to all procurement equal to or above 30,000 and up to 50 million. In essence, then, the 80-20 preferential procurement will apply to all consulting engineering services. We also look at the Constitution, as some are of the opinion that the PFA is unconstitutional. CESA's view is that it is indeed constitutional, as the Constitution clearly states that government can procure goods and services giving preference to certain groups, and that government must develop a procurement framework enabling this policy to be implemented. So we are now operating in a legislative environment that clearly spells out the transformation imperative and giving it teeth then through the introduction of the PPPA. But let us look at the context of consulting engineering in South Africa. CESA represents approximately 540 consulting engineering firms, which comprise about 80% of all consulting engineering firms operating in South Africa. In addition, our member firms employ about 23,000 engineering staff. It can then be assumed that CESA is representative of the consulting engineers in the private sector. But when considering all employment in our membership base, approximately 50% of all staff are white. It's been like that for the last 10 years. However, when only professionally registered engineering practitioners are considered, only 16% of all professionally registered engineers and technologists are black. Only 16%. The employment breakdown further indicates that black people are typically employed lower down on the professional hierarchy as technicians, technical assistants, and laboratory and survey assistants. A review of the CESA membership database at about January this year also indicates that only 21% of our member firms have a black ownership greater than 51%. Only 21% have a black ownership greater than 51%. Furthermore, CESA membership eligibility criteria requires a minimum of 51% shareholding by registered professionally registered engineers and technologists. So the imbalance in the industry is self-evident. And as an industry, a representative of the private sector, we have to acknowledge that not enough has been done to transform the business landscape in South Africa. So when we talk transformation, we have to acknowledge that many black-owned and women-owned consulting engineering firms have been established since 1994. Many bursaries became available for black and female learners to study engineering. And since 1994, with the introduction of the previous version then of preferential procurement policies, progress has indeed been made, but not necessarily to the extent that it was expected. Within the built environment profession, including consulting engineering, various challenges were experienced. Notably, the BBBE policies gave rise to the phenomenon of fronting. And still today, questions are being raised about the effectiveness of the BBBE scorecard in realizing the country's transformation objectives. CESA's view is that transformation is not a short-term action. To be sustainable, we need to take a long-term view and ensure that the necessary building blocks are in place to realize this. Having said that, we need to start accelerating the pace of transformation within or amongst consulting engineering firms. And reaching the end of my term, I now hand over the leadership of CESA to my successor and trust in CESA's leadership to ably guide us through this vexing period. This journey is going to require dynamic, visionary, and ethical leadership. Our journey is not complete and many challenges lie ahead. However, going forward, we will continue to play our part in improving the business landscape so that we do enable consulting engineering excellence in South Africa. I have great confidence in the leadership and vision of my successor to lead CESA in navigating the dynamic business environment we are facing. Although challenging, it is an opportunity for growth and change towards a more inclusive consulting engineering profession and business environment. Thank you for charging me with this opportunity to lead CESA for the last 2 years. It's been a challenging and humbling experience, but also very uplifting. I have met so many passionate and dedicated engineers along the way, believing in their skills and abilities as consulting engineers, believing in their contribution to bring about the desired change in South Africa, willing to do their bit. I thank you.